Hello and welcome to my channel, Voluptas Oculorum. My name is Stephanie, and it's been a long time since I've made a video. It's been a really busy autumn for me. I went back to Canada for a few weeks to visit friends and family, and since I've been back in the UK, I've been just really busy with project work, but I have been trying to make some more time for watercolor, even though it's not exactly the right weather to go out and paint outside anymore. And today, I thought that I would show you a little winter palette that I've created from a variety of watercolor paints that I had in my collection. I was going through some of my paint palettes and cleaning them up and refilling things. And as I was doing that, I was working on my on plein air mini palette, and I thought these colors are really great, but um, there's not so much focus on green anymore outside. As I've been walking, I've been noticing a lot more sort of yellowy, orange, dark red colors as all of the leaves have fallen, and all that's left is just the sort of bare bones of the trees. So please join me in swatching out my new winter palette for 2025. So I've got my desk set up. It is a thankfully sunny day today. It's very rare, but you have to take advantage of them when they come. And as you can see, uh, my art desk this is really clean actually, but usually it's a lot more covered in various supplies. I have moved those all to the side for the benefit of this video. But this is the palette that I've been working on. It's a variety of paints. It's not Rosa Gallery paints at all. I just had this empty palette, and so I thought it would make a good little space for my new winter palette collection. They're grabbed from a few different palettes that I had going on. So yeah, I'm excited to sort of show you how those play out. I'm going to test them on a few different papers. I have a Cotty 100% cotton rag. I think this is 210 or 220 GSM. I have this watercolor block. It's 100% cotton. I got it on Temu last year. I don't buy things from Temu anymore, but I thought that I would just try this and see how it performs. And then I have some Bahang Academy watercolor paper, just a small little block that I've been using for creating other swatches. So I'm going to just close the blinds so that we don't get this bright, bright sun inside, and we will continue with the swatching. All right, I've got my paper all set up with the names of each pigment or each paint that I'm going to be using. Hopefully you can see that. The light conditions have been very changeable, going from bright, bright sun to sun behind a cloud. So hopefully that doesn't impact the color balance here, but at the end I will pan over in a more even lighting so that you can see the true colors of each of the pigments. So grab a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a cup of hot chocolate, or whatever it is you like to drink on a cool winter's morning, and let's get started. So I've given these a little spray, but I'm gonna just spray each one individually as I go, just to moisten it a little bit more. And then we're gonna start with Daniel Smith's Buff Titanium. So I'm using a Tintoretto round brush. It's a synthetic squirrel that I got with one of my A Gallo palettes. And I now have two of these, and I really, really like them. I basically bring it with me wherever I go when I'm doing on plein air painting or painting in my art studio. I don't know if you can call it a studio because it's really just my office, but yeah, I use it for everything. It's a size 0. And I would say it's equivalent to like a round size 10 brush in a normal paintbrush sizing. So here we go with Buff Titanium. And you can see I really like loaded the color on, uh, but it's just so soft. Um, and yeah, it holds a lot of water. So it's very good for if you if you're going out and um, you want to quickly put down a lot of color on a page, it's just really perfect for that. So while I'm swatching, what I'm trying to do is get the majority of the mass tone up at the top here, and then I sort of press down the belly to release more water as I get towards the base of the swatch so that you can see how it is in a more watery tone. I'm going to close my blinds a tiny bit here just to get some more even lighting. There we go. So what I'm going to do is swatch out everything on this paper first, and then off camera, I'm going to swatch it out on the other two papers and then just pan over and show you what those look like. So the next color that I selected for this palette is a Roman Szmal color called Transparent Gold Ochre. I've already sprayed it, so it's already re-wetting quite easily. I was walking, and I don't know what the trees are like elsewhere in the wintertime. I mean, I do know because I've experienced winter in lots of different places, but here you never really get the sense that the color leaves the trees. Like it's never just black or brown. There seem to be always at the top of the trees, like the new growth that you can see coming for the next year. And at the very top of a lot of elm trees, I see this bright gold color right at the top. I probably don't have enough water on my brush here, so I'm just going to add a little bit more here. So this is a really beautiful, earthy gold ochre. And I bought a whole bunch of Roman Szmal earth colors um, earlier in 2024. And I tried to fit them all into my palette, but I couldn't because there's just so many beautiful colors. I have like a palette, but I have so many full pans because I just love the color so much, and I use it in my studio painting more so than my on plein air painting. And I just ran out of space. So I had a whole bunch of earth colors, and they've ended up in this palette. Really excited about that. Finally, maybe use them for some beautiful paintings. So this one is a handmade watercolor from Essee and Co. You can get these on Etsy, or they have their own website as well. And this one is called Desert Okra. Um, it's a really beautiful sandy color. So you can see this brush, uh, it or this paper, I should say, it really is rough. So it takes a lot of water to sort of deposit color evenly. But I like that about this paper. I like that it's incredibly absorbent. Um, so let's just get a little. I'm just picking up the color from the base and trying to deposit it more evenly towards the top so that you can see the lighter tone of this color. This color from Essee is from their Torino 48 palette. I think it's the second set. And they just came out with a new 48 set, the Torino 3, I think it's called. Maybe they've called it something different now, but it's got a whole bunch of really beautiful colors in it, although it does have quite a few duplicates from the first two of their sets. Um, yeah. So this third one is another Roman Szmal color. It's called Pompei Red. I was deliberating between this and the Mummy Transparent Red. And ultimately, I went for this one because I felt it had a little more granulation in it. So let me see if I can load it up here. Not sure if you can tell how much the light is changing outside. It's just going in between bright and dim, bright and dim, bright and dim. It's very difficult to film in, but hopefully you're getting these colors. They're so beautiful. So this is a beautiful rusty red color. There's so many shrubs that when they don't have leaves anymore, they have like this really rusty um, structure to their twigs and branches. And yeah, so that's why I chose the Pompei Red. So the next one is an A Gallo color called Quinacridone Chestnut. Uh, I haven't been mentioning the pigment names because I didn't actually take a look at what those were before I started this. I'm sure that matters a lot to some people. To me, it's not as important. I know that when I selected my colors, I did a lot of research into their pigments and whether they were light fast or not. And so now I'm just trusting that my earlier self made good choices. And yeah, at the end, I will add on the pigment numbers to each of these colors so that you can see them. Okay, hopefully that's loaded. This is an absolutely gorgeous color. I haven't really seen something similar in other brands of watercolor. So as you can see, it's like this extremely rich, almost like a golden red. It's earthy, um, but it's also very delicate as it washes out. I think it's absolutely beautiful and extremely unique. It's called PR206. I know that one because it's written on the pan. So I'm not a pigment expert. I don't know if that's um, a common pigment and something that's well used or if it's quite unique to A Gallo. But in any case, I haven't seen that color in this richness in any other brand. The next one is another Essee handmade color. It's called Classic Velvet. This is again from the Torino 48 second palette. Um, this is a more of a creamy, opaque color. I don't know exactly what pigment's in it, but I bet you there is some PW6 because it is quite um, opaque for watercolor. But it is a beautiful, silky, sort of light reddish purple, I would say. Actually, not as opaque as I initially said. It looks opaque on the pan, but when you paint it out, it's actually quite transparent. We'll see how it dries out. So I feel like I see a lot of purples in the wintertime in shadows. Um, the shadows of like red and orange tend to look purple to me. I don't know if that's just my eyes, but yeah, that's what I see. The next color is Roman Szmal Aquarius Violet. And this is a granulating and color separating color. I deliberated between this and another of the Essee colors, which is like called Uva Passa. It's like a really rich aubergine color. And I ultimately decided to go with this because I felt like it really um, added a much needed darkness to the palette. So you can see here it's extremely rich and dark when it gets first added. Um, so it's a quite deep color. Now I'm going to add some water to the bottom, some clear water, just to help highlight some of the color separating and granulation that hopefully you'll be able to see as this dries. The next color is a Daniel Smith Primatech color. I love the Primatech colors. They're very expensive, but I have a source. My sister works for an office and art supply store in Victoria, BC, and she gets a really good discount. It's like cost minus 30%. So when I saw her recently in Montreal, when I was there on a visit for family on the other side of Canada, I had asked her to bring me some Daniel Smith colors, and she brought me 15 milliliter tubes of some gorgeous colors that I otherwise really could not afford. And I was so stoked about it. Anyways, I am really lucky that I have her working for that. I also get a really good discount on pan pastels, so that's lucky for me. So Sodalite is like a really deep, rich, almost like an indigo blue. But when it dries out, you'll see it's more granulated. So indigos, as far as I can tell, they tend to be quite smooth um, as you work with them. This Sodalite, you can really see the color separation as it dries. The next color is from Winsor Newton, and it's Cerulean Blue. I chose this blue because I feel that the blues in winter, they tend to be on the warmer side. Now, I could have gone with an ultramarine, but I don't want to say this. I'm not sure if I should say this, but I'm kind of bored of ultramarine. It's in every palette, everybody uses it, and I just wanted something a little bit different. So I chose the cerulean blue. And I do feel that it makes a good bright winter blue, like for those really bright days that you sometimes get where you just have absolutely no clouds and it is super gorgeous outside. You get this so bright sky blue. And this cerulean just seemed perfect for that. There it is. The next color is one of my absolute favorites. And this has been in my on plein air mini palette all summer. It's called Ultramarine Ash, and it's one of Winsor & Newton's revival colors that they released earlier. Um, I think it was in 2024 that they released their revival colors. They released a few others. I wasn't really keen on them. The only other one that I bought was Mineral Gray, and I do like that, but it's extremely, extremely pale. So it's useful for a mixing color, but I don't use it generally on its own. So here's ultramarine ash. It's another very pale color, but it's, I think, so perfect for, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just perfect for England because generally the skies tend to be this sort of dullish, grayish, bluish color when it's, raining and cloudy, which is a lot of the time. But it also has its uses in the winter, doesn't it? To have these like kind of cooler but light blue shadows on things. So yeah, a very delicate color, but one of my favorites. And I find it so perfect for this location. Okay, the next color that I have is another um, Daniel Smith color. This one is Lunar Blue. I don't think this is in their Primatech series. I don't think it's based on a gem, but it is a really beautiful granulating color. So I wish my pan was bigger. I really prefer full pans when I'm painting in the studio, although this is intended to be able to be more mobile just in case we get some nice winter days that I could go out as well. Great. So this lunar blue, on first glance, it might look similar to the Sodalite, but it actually has more of turquoise or teal color shift to it. Let's see if I can get more in my brush. Yeah. So um, it can go dark, but I would say it's a rather transparent color. Um, but as it dries, you'll see how it changes and granulates, and it's just so beautiful. I'm actually not sure how much we'll see granulation on this paper because it's so rough, so we might have to wait until I get onto the cold press paper. Um, but let's move on. This is the only Isaro color that I have in this palette, and it's Nordman Green. This is a perfect pine tree color, I would say. Um, it's a bluey green. It's granulating. I really, really love it. Okay, next in the swatches, we have Roman Szmal Green Earth. I've always loved the color of green earth. I have it in Winsor Newton as well. I also have it in a Gallo, but I do find it really difficult to re-wet. In this Roman Schmal version, it's really easy to re-wet and use. So that's why I selected the Roman Schmal version because I just find sometimes it feels like you're really like digging at the color and it's just not coming out. This really paints out, as you can see, like quite smooth and easy. Um, it doesn't feel scratchy. It doesn't feel dried out. It feels like, the same as other Roman Schmal paints, which are always so um, smooth and easy to work with. So that's green earth. I think that this green is a perfect one for wintertime because it's you don't see those really bright spring greens, you don't see those really deep um, saturated summer greens, and you're not seeing the sort of gold green of autumn. You're seeing this sort of like really muted green when you do see green in the wintertime. Like the color of, I don't know, the tip of a spruce with light coming through it or something. The next color is another Roman Szmal color, Sap Green Light. And I was kind of like wondering why I didn't keep this in my main Roman Szmal palette. And I realized it's because I had Autumn Green in that palette, which is a very, very similar color to the Sap Green Light, except it's like a little bit more uh, granulating and color shifting. And so I guess I still opted for that instead of this Sap Green Light. But look at this color. It's like not what I would think of with a sap green normally. It's really like more of like a light olive or something, but it's actually so beautiful um, and so useful. I find this color green to be like basically the perfect color of green almost to me. In my mind, this is like the most natural looking green. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the color at the bottom to sort of with a light. All right. Um, The next color is an Essee color. It is called Ombre de Cho. I had this on my Florence on plein air palette, and somebody had commented that it means shadow of cypress, which makes a lot of sense because it's very dark. And um, I was also thinking it could be like shadow umber or cypress umber or something like that because ombra, but then I don't know. I don't speak Italian, so I'm going to depend on people who know better than me to tell me what it is. All I know is that you always want to have a really dark, rich brown on any of your palettes. Doesn't matter what the season is. These types of colors, initially I was like very not attracted to browns, and there's still some browns that I'm not that into. Like I don't really like umbers. I don't like raw umbers. I don't like green umbers. I don't like, yeah, most of the umbers except for burnt umbers. Um, but what I realized is that you truly do need darks to add dynamic shadows to your work when you're painting with watercolors because they're so transparent otherwise and they tend to dry lighter. You really need something like very, very intense to sort of bring out those shadows. So that's one of my favorites. I've been using it basically all summer. Okay, the last one is a Roman Szmal color called Aquarius Black. And if I recall correctly, this is extremely granulating. So let's see how it paints out here. I know there's a lot of people who are not into blacks, but for me, I find them incredibly useful for toning things. So let's just see. So yeah, it's interesting because it looks gray, doesn't it? Make sure that I've gotten. Well, let's see how this goes because in my other swatch, it really turned into this very interesting black granulating situation. So I'm not sure if this is going to do the same thing, but let's hope. If it doesn't, I'll show you the swatch that I had painted out before, and you can see maybe it's dried out a lot. I have no idea. I mean, it's pan, so it should be dry anyways, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so as these are drying, I'm gonna just let them continue drying and I'll bring it back once everything is dry so that you can see all of these colors as they granulate and color separate and etc. In the meantime, off camera, I'm going to paint out the swatches on all of the other papers as well, and I'll come back and show you everything at the end. This is everything all dried and swatched out on the Cotty rough 100% cotton rag. I think it's 210 or 220 GSM. And this paper, it is quite rough. There is a lot of texture to it. So I don't think that you see the granulation quite as much, but I do think that these colors show up quite beautifully against this paper. And I really enjoy the texture of rough paper. I know not everybody is into that, but I think it's very forgiving, this paper. It's also really absorbent. One thing I'll mention is that with this Aquarius Black, when I swatched it out, it looked quite gray. I went back to the pan and I worked at it a little bit more, and I realized that it had just sort of developed a sort of dry coating on top. So as soon as I was able to get to sort of like the base color of paint, it became what I was remembering it to be and anticipating it to be, which is this granulating black color. I would call it like a warmer black, but I think the granulation is what makes it really unique and beautiful. So that's the rough paper. I also swatched it out onto this sort of generic 100% cotton cold press watercolor block. This is from Temu. It's called Layton. I don't know anything about this brand. Other than that, I just wanted to try out a whole bunch of different types of paper when I was first starting watercolor painting earlier this year. So I do think that the colors painted out nicely on this paper. Think that it's the smoothest of the papers that I painted out on today. And as such, it's a little less forgiving. But I do think you can see some of the nice granulation, for example, in the Lunar Blue, a little bit better. And this is how the rest of the colors look on it. And then the final paper I used was Bauhung Academy watercolor. This is 100% cotton cold press. It is probably the most enjoyable, I would say, of the papers that I use today. And that's because I find the texture to be good. It's not as rough as the rough paper, but it's not as smooth as the other pad that I used. So it's the right amount of texture for me. And I think that the paint colors were very easy to paint out on this paper. And I think that they also show them in their best light. Like the colors on this paper to me seem like the right colors. Like they're what I expect the colors to look like. I mean, the colors are not bad on this other pad down here. And then if I bring these together, let's just see. I think on the rough paper, they're a little bit duller, maybe a little bit darker. I don't know if I can, yeah, I think they're a little bit duller and darker, especially if you look at the transparent gold ochre or some of the lighter colors. I think they look brighter on this paper. I think the granulation shows up really well. If I look at the Aquarius Black, the Cerulean Blue, um, and all of the others. Probably could have added more water to some of the granulating colors so that they would show up even more. But I think that this was, for me, the best paper to paint it out on. I think it's really important to paint out all of your colors onto different types of paper so that you can really see the differences. Because sometimes we think like, you know, oh, this color's kind of dull or this not showing up the way I want it to. And you might realize it's actually the paper, not the paint. So I think it's really important to test out a variety of different textures and types so that you can really get a feel for how your paints and paper are performing. And that way you can also find out what your preferences are.
Hey, so this is the next day. I couldn't resist doing a few sketchbook pieces with my new palette because I was just so excited to try it out. And I had some time this morning. So I decided to focus on sort of two aspects of the palette. First is like the more purpley, darker blue tones, and then the more greenish landscape tones, which are like I normally work more like in this kind of a palette, but I wanted to see what the potentials were with some of the other colors that I wouldn't normally reach for, such as the violets and the purples. And I really enjoyed working with it. It was so easy to sort of match colors or to make things sort of go together in a nice way. This is actually a picture from the December spread of a calendar that I bought in the Lake District. So it's all by an artist. And it's kind of like an abstracted landscape. And I did do a watercolor base, and then I used some paint sticks over top. So just these like kids paint sticks that I have a whole bunch of different types. I also have these like gel sticks. So yeah, I use those over top on this one. And then the only pencil that I find goes over top of all of that is, where is it now? This one. It's the Derwent Drawing Chinese White, and the Derwent Drawing are really soft, and they go over almost anything. So I love using them over top of my mixed media drawings. I don't find any other pencils go as well. And trust me, I've tried them all. I have like literally every like white pencil that is made, and none of them are as good as the Derwent drawing pencil. Anyways, and then I decided I wanted to focus more on the greens and the browns, which is sort of like the normal English landscape scenario here. And this is from a picture that I took when I was doing a walk near Compton Martin last weekend. And it wasn't like a super nice day, but at the very end of the day, as the sun was going down, it just highlighted the top of this hill while we were walking. And it made all of the treetops sort of glow in this like orangey reddish tone. So I thought that was like a really perfect example of what this palette is designed to reproduce. So I basically used all of the colors in the palette for both of these two. Obviously, the more like this sort of zone for the spread on the left, or sorry, the right. And then this this zone and some of these like lighter yellows and buffs for the drawing on the left. So I got really good use out of all of these colors. They all seem to go together really well, and I'm excited to create more works throughout the winter as I keep going. So thanks for joining me on this little winter palette creation video. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.